Tonight's theme is insult to injury. Please welcome our revered and fearless leader, Joel Jones.
Our guest today is a playwright with a long history in the Charlottesville and New York City theater scenes. Since 2012, two of his main interests have been teaching and performing improv and storytelling. Join us today as we catch up with Joel Jones, co-founder of Big Blue Door. Come on.
When I was young, I thought the ideal way to deal with a problem, the sort of best way to deal with it, the fantasy way, was you put your clothes in a backpack and your guitar in a case and you leave. And you don't tell anyone where you're going or why.
Joel, talk about the importance of improv and storytelling.
We feel it's kind of a means to an end of getting people to listen to each other, and two parts of that. One is to get people better at explaining themselves or telling their own story, and also getting people better at listening to other people's story, developing listening skills. And so we've kind of these two things, the true stories and the improv. And true stories is kind of helping people to share things that have happened to them, so we learn what real life is like, what are people actually like. And then the improv is kind of letting you actually walk in someone else's shoes, learning how to adopt a different character, learning how to use parts of yourself and express that in different ways, and seeing how that could play out in different points of view and different patterns of behavior.
You've been very involved in the theater scene. Tell us just a little bit about your background.
Yeah, sure. I went to I went to school here. I did theater in high school. Went to college in College of Charleston. I studied anthropology, classics, and kind of moved away from theater. I moved back here at a time when live arts and offstage theater were being founded. My friend John Quinn, you remember him, of course. And I was writing a lot of plays, and there was a company in New York called Third Man that actually had roots here, and they were doing a lot of my work up there. And so I just kind of wanted to be in a bigger place, you know. So I went there, and after that, I gradually found the storytelling scene up there, like The Moth and things like that. And I was taking classes. I was like, wouldn't this be great to bring back to Charlottesville? So that's why we started Big Blue Door down here.
Yeah. Why'd you call it Big Blue Door?
I was working for the Magnet Theater, which is a comedy theater in New York. The guy who runs that, or started it, Armando Diaz, was kind of teaching me to be a teacher, which was what I wanted to do, teaching me to teach improv, and I was doing performance as well. And Armando, in exchange, I was helping them do construction. They were building this training center, this rehearsal space, and I was working on a door, and Jen and I were trying to come up with a name. At the same time, I was actually hanging a door for them. You know, I'm a carpenter. I was hanging this door, and I was painting it blue, and I was like, what should we call it? And blue reminded me of Virginia, and, you know, door, the symbolism of, you know, letting people in the door, open the door. And,
Right.
And at the time, you know, everything had an acronym, and so just to have a name that wasn't an acronym, I thought would be fun.
Not apple-shaped, rather pear. Dun, 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 dun.
I'm not boring, I got lots of flair.
It's like this opportunity to get together with other grown-ups and play.
It's super fun. It's the highlight probably of any student or performer's week is going to rehearsal or going to class for improv. It's a really great experience, and it also helps kind of teach you in some ways to experience what's happening right then and there.
The philosophy came out of the idea, some of it out of improv actually, that anybody can do it. Also, we wanted to rely on ourselves and not rely on donors. So Big Blue Door is different than many other arts organizations in that it's really our classes that keep us going.
These are really great glass figurines you have.
You know, my family's been making these since the 1600s.
Wow, that's a long time.
What is the difference between long-form improv and short-form improv?
Well, short form came first, kind of in the 50s, and it's, you kind of get two people on stage and you kind of throw something at them, okay? Be an animal, use an accent. In the middle of the scene, you throw something else at them. And people really enjoy that, and it can make people kind of learn to be really resilient in a way, and being able to handle all kinds of pressure. Long form developed really in the 80s, and the education part of it came really in the 90s of, instead of making people do something like, you know, drink the cup with like a dolphin would. Instead, you talk, well, let's do a scene where actually two people drinking coffee and see what happens. And then you're actually drawing on your own experiences and your own reaction to the other person. And it creates this comedy material that hasn't ever been used before. So it's a very funny and interesting thing. And it's very new. You know, we're the first people that brought it here. No one else was doing it. And the guy who developed it more than anyone was Armando Diaz, who taught me. So
That's
you know,
exciting.
cutting edge
I know,
Charlottesville.
I love that. That's so great.
Yeah.
Okay, so you offer classes in improv, and you also you work on stories and storytelling.
Yeah.
So talk about that philosophy. What's involved there?
When we first came down here, our first project on our own was Big Blue Door Jam, which was this true story show. It was, in some ways, had a lot to do with similar to The Moth in New York, which is a storytelling show. People come with like 6 to 8 minute true stories on a theme, and they tell the stories. And it's a really interesting art form. People are very funny and they're interesting, and it's amazing to hear these lives of people around you. You know, everyone is surprisingly more interesting than TV characters or what you see in movies, which is incredible. You know,
Yeah.
and then most of these people are actually from the classes that we've taught.
I was like, oh my goodness, I do comedy. Here's my number. We'll get coffee. Let me bestow my comedy knowledge onto you.
I want to make my life seem interesting to strangers. And it's amazing to me some of the stories that come out of people that they themselves may not have known they had the last time we had met.
I'm telling a true story about a time where I was publicly humiliated, which is very fun to talk about.
She was like, oh my God, we just had our stand-up presentations today and Mickey was hilarious. He told this story about this horrible girl he went on a date with. And I knew immediately in my gut that Mickey's story was about me.
So what are secrets? Like, you know, what's the trick to improv?
Your best trick to improv is a strong point of view. So if you come at a scene thinking of it as a situation, then someone else, you think we're like, you know, that we're these people. And then I come at it with, I suddenly surprise you by being, you know, something completely different. You're thrown into for a loop. But if you come at it with a strong point of view, especially like that you express in your body and your attitude, like I'm just going to be a very specific point of person. Then if we end up on the moon, I can, you know, and we're at the moon. Yeah, it's important in the moon base to be. Or if we're accountants, and I can be that same character. If I turn out to be we're hunters in the swamp, I can have the same. Oh, I gotta shoot. You know, you can have the same kind of point that you take things from to do anything. If you're doing stories, you know, one thing I would say is, you know, keep yourself the center of your story. So instead of like this happened, say I saw this happen, or this happened to me, or I decided to do this. Even if it's an arbitrary thing, like I decided to turn left in the road rather than right in the road, and then something happens, it will feel more meaningful than I was just driving down the road and this thing happened.
The fans, they want balls in the back of the net, and at the end of the day, my responsibility is to the team. And yes, was it underhanded? But I got results.
It felt like an amazing liberation, and I discovered that that's what I want to do. I said, I don't want to give speeches, I want to tell stories.
It's an interesting way to get kind of in touch with your own emotions and thoughts too, because that's what makes good improv, is that personal point of view and those personal emotions.
All of a sudden I thought, someone's telling these stories about her life and she's excited and entertained and we're all laughing and we're all coming together with, you know, this moment with her. And I loved it and wanted to bring that to Charlottesville.
And so how many different groups do you think of, like improv groups now come out of it that perform in town?
Yeah, most of the people kind of we recombine into groups over and over again. So we've had, you know, 20 or 30 groups, but they're mostly the same 4 groups that are kind of reconfigured.
That's still pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing how many students we run. You know, 3 classes at a time, usually a true stories class and a couple of improv classes, and then 2 improv team performance workshops that are rehearsals basically, and about 5 things at once. You know, 5 different sessions during the year.
So do other people in the community get involved too in coming up with ideas and involved with production?
Yeah,
You're interested in that.
Well, Jen and I kind of started it, and then she has not been able to do as much in recent years because she's been working more. But some of our improvisers who came up through initially, or their classes now teach. So a lot of people come up and then they do more and more, and it's fantastic. It's really gratifying to see people, because I would love, you know, other people to do everything. And I can just kick back.
And there are other classes too.
Yeah, we do sketch writing, comedy writing,
right,
and we will eventually, once we have a more fixed space, develop more of a writing program.
Welcome to Jack and Jill's House of Lead. That's right.
We're going to be snug as 2 bugs under this lead rug. You take this big risk stepping out in front of an audience and having absolutely no idea what is about to happen. And you just have to trust your teammates and build the next thing.
You'll get to see a show that no one else will ever get to see. It's a really great thing. You get to hold on to something really ephemeral, and I think that's one of the really big appeals. The other thing is it's really funny. You end up being able to explore some themes that sometimes you don't get to explore in like sketch or short form or things like that.
Next time I say,
Sweetheart.
I'm sorry, you're stressed. I signed up for the storytelling class because I'm currently in the process of applying to medical schools, and I wanted practice with being composed, with talking to strangers, and I feel like this has given me excellent practice with that.
I went on a couple of dates with this guy from Great Britain, and he caught me practicing his accent under my breath, which he did not find endearing.
Performance in front of people is one of the most uncomfortable things for people. It's one of the number one human fears, right? So you can use that in your performance. You know, shy people, introverted people, awkward people, that's great because you want your performance to have stakes. You want there to be something at stake.
Right.
But if you're so polished and you are so confident, which is what we always try to make people, then how can you lose? And if you can't lose, there's nothing at stake, so nothing can fall. Whereas you get shy people out there and they're barely holding it together, it's really great to watch and it's really fun to see. And when they succeed, it's like you feel like cheering. It's awesome.
And it humanizes you, and an audience likes that.
Yeah.
And people can always look at your website to see where you all are. So what are your goals? What's the goal for the future?
We definitely are going to continue to put on new kinds of improv shows, things that people haven't seen before. We are hoping always to expand our oral history project. We're at Trueville, and we're looking to do that. We're also interested in sketch comedy and plays and things that are, we'd love to expand the writing part of our program and get some shows up that can explore what life is like for all of us here in our little ville.
Working on telling true stories has made me be more honest and vulnerable when I just have conversations in my real life. I don't know, I feel like it makes me a better person.
There's a way that you can address some of the embarrassing stuff that's happened to you and feel strengthened by it.
Big Blue Door is the most fun I have in my life these days. Does that sound sad? It's really fun.